My name is Simon Haley. I'm the Leadership and Partnership Director at Nuru Nigeria. Nuru Nigeria's project is strategically designed to build community resilience through targeted agribusiness interventions. Nuru Nigeria, with funding from ACT Foundation, has over these years been able to make remarkable achievements in the Northeast through its implementation of agricultural entrepreneurship projects for smallholder farmers. Through the funding we have received over these years, we have been able to reach 32,226 smallholder farmers, where about 70% of the total beneficiaries are women.
Hello, hello, good morning. It's a beautiful day here. Good morning, how are you all doing? I trust you're doing very well. My name is Abiodun Owo. I'm the programs manager here at Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. And I'd like to say welcome to everyone for finding out time to join us for the very first training from ACT Foundation Stable for this year. And what is this training going to be about? It's about how to craft pitches that your funders, your prospective funders and investors will find irresistible. Once again, my name is Abiodun Owo. Could you just, chat with someone in the chat room, say hello, introduce yourself, if possible, exchange numbers, let them know who you are, try to find out who the other person is. And if you can see your screen, you see that I have a couple of languages on here, and they all mean one thing. They mean welcome. In, I think, Ghanaian language is Akwaba, and then I have a couple of others. There's Mesiere, there's Karibu, there's No, I think that's Igbo language. Imagine, there's no Yoruba language here. How is that possible? If you could just put in the chat box, how do you say welcome in your language? I'd like to see, how do you say welcome in your language? I see somebody is thinking about it. How do you say welcome in your language? Okay. I see hands raised already. Please, let's use the chat box. How do you say welcome in your language? Okay, I'm so unable to use the chat box. Let me see what's going on with that, and then we'll get back. Okay. Okay. If you could please give me a moment for that. Right. Okay. Are you able to use the chat box now, the chat room now? Oh, unfortunately not. Okay, all right. While we try to fix that, once again, I just want to say a very big welcome to you. In TimeSpot, we have found that there are different things that are responsible for, organizations not getting the kind of investment, the kind of partnership that they would like to get from their partner. And over time, we have seen this happen over and over again. We have seen this recur, and that is why, as Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, we care a lot about, especially organizations in the social sector. So, be you a nonprofit, be you a social enterprise, we know what you're going through. We feel you, and that is why we have brought the very, excellent Tochukwu Ezeku, who you'll be meeting in a few minutes, and who will be talking about. He'll be teaching us. He'll be, dishing out skills and tools for you to craft irresistible pitch for your organization. In a minute, I would like us to please just take notes of the ground rules that we have. So you have made out time to be here, and we want to encourage you to please participate actively. As much as possible, avoid multitasking. If you're going to be doing any other thing, I think you should be taking notes. So let's take note of that. You can use the Q&A chat box to ask your questions. We're sorry about the chat room. We're trying to resolve that so that you can make other comments in the chat room, but then strictly for Q&A, please let's use the Q&A feature. At the end of this webinar, we would expect you to please provide us feedback on what you think about our webinar so that it also helps us to continue to improve on the things that we do. Okay, right about now, I'm going to be handing over to our Chief Executive Officer. I call her the best CEO ever, with emphasis on the ever. Who is going to formally welcome us before we get into the business of the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Biodun. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. I want to say welcome, 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 welcome. The very first this year. And we're really excited to have Tochukwu with us. If you know Tochukwu, you will know that this is his, he knows what he's talking about. And we're looking forward to listening to him, understanding what funders look out for, just gaining some form of confidence. We know what's going around in our sector and what's been happening in the last few months. So everyone is being, a bit disillusionized, and we want you to be a bit comfortable because we know that the funding is reducing significantly, and we want you to be more prepared, especially in 2025 going into 2026. So we're going to have very interesting conversations, not only today, but the next few that we'll have in the next few months, just helping us, guiding us through all that we require, all that is needed. And one of the major things for us is the feedback. And I think Bjorn had mentioned this. So it enables us to make the right decisions when we're choosing the conversations that we want to have, and then when we're choosing what we should do and how we should do things better. So I want to say a big welcome, and I'm looking forward to getting all the questions, listening to all the comments as we enjoy the next 2.5 hours with Tochukwu. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much, Tochukwu, for saying yes. Back to you, Biodu.
All right. Thank you very much for that, ma'am. Okay, we just have a few more things to do before we get into the business of the day. And I would like us to quickly, you see a poll that will come up soon. And I would like you to please just respond to those questions. It will help us to get to know you. And also for our speaker, if there are things that he needs to also take note of. You should see the poll come up in a few seconds now. So just try and fill the questions for us. The first one asks if you're a first-time participant. The second one asks if you have ever presented a pitch or proposal on behalf of your organization. And the last one says, what do you expect to take away from this training? So we'll give a few minutes for you to fill that. I see one person has filled. Please try and fill. For our participants on YouTube, we're going to drop a link in the chat room shortly, so you can also click on that link so that you can participate in the poll as well. Okay, I see the numbers rising. Please, let's take a moment to fill the poll. Okay. All right, it's coming up. It's coming up. I have 18 responses. Okay, now 25. We can do a lot better. Okay, I'm seeing about 30 something. Yeah, let's keep it up. Let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. Yeah, we'll end in a few seconds. It's timing out very soon. For participants on YouTube, please look at the chat room. You'll see a link that has been dropped in there for you. Just click on that link and please fill out the form. Thank you. Okay, do this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I see it's still coming up. All right, thank you very much for filling the poll, and we'll just take a look at the results. Okay, so I see that 80% of us are first-time participants here. You are welcome. We hope that you do come back again and again, as we have a lot more training in the course of the year. 62% of our participants here say they have ever presented a pitch or proposal. I guess we should have asked if you have ever won any, but then it's okay. We're here to learn. And then what do you expect to take away from this training? Okay, skills, more information on pitching and stuff like, okay, I guess we can just move on because our speaker is here and he's waiting to share. He can't wait to share. In a bit, I will briefly tell us about Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. It would be nice that we know about the organization that is putting this training together, and I'll do that in a few minutes before we welcome our speaker. So at Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, we pride ourselves as an award-winning organization. What are we out to do? We are here to address the numerous developmental challenges that we face in our continent. You would agree with me that from health to leadership to education to whatever, a whole lot of challenges we're being faced with around the world, and of course in Africa. And at Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, when a couple of people found that these problems are here, and they found a need for us to have homegrown solutions, we cannot continue to depend on funding from foreign aid. And that was what birthed Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. And how do we do what we do? We do it through funding, through capacity strengthening for our partners. One of such capacity strengthening activities is this one you're attending, and of course through strategic project delivery with our partners. So we don't just provide funding and stop there. We handhold our partners while we are at it. At ACT Foundation, our vision is to leverage relationships to create effective social impact solutions across Africa. And the emphasis here is on effective social impact solutions. So it's not a touch and go. It's not just a project to do to start and end, and then people leave. We seek to create effective social impact solutions across Africa. And how do we do that? Through the relationships that we form with our over 100 partners that we've been working with since 2017. Our focus areas are 4 at the moment. You would agree with me that Africa is faced with numerous challenges across different sectors. But at Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation, we have streamlined it to 4 areas, and those are health, environment, entrepreneurship, and leadership. And as you can see on the screen, we have also other focus areas under those areas. So in health, for example, we would support things around maternal and child health and non-communicable diseases. For environment, we support access to safe drinking water, and we also support integrated waste management as well as climate action, of course. For entrepreneurship, things around financial literacy and inclusion are things we support, and then acquisition of vocational and digital skills. You cannot do without digital skills in our age and time. Same thing goes for vocational skills. And with respect to leadership, we support youth leadership, thought leadership, and national development. Like I mentioned earlier, our major bulk is to provide grants to nonprofits, social enterprises in Nigeria, and also across other African countries. We have reached over 12 African countries at the moment, and we are still expanding. And beyond that, we also go further to build the capacity of our partners, either through our professional volunteer program, which sort of does a one-on-one mentoring program with our partners, or through this kind of training, which is our ACT Knowledge series, where we provide information, knowledge, and skills to nonprofits and to social enterprises in the sector. We also take partnerships very, very seriously, and that is why we work in collaboration with well-wishers, change makers around the world who are also interested in the courses that we're interested in. Research is another thing we do. If you go to our website, you'll find all of the research that we have done. We've done things around digital transformation. We've done things around cancer prevention and cancer intervention. We've done things around gender mainstreaming. And also recently, we did something around cancer intervention as well. And when you go to our website, you'll find it. Of course, in 2022, we also published our ACT book, which talks about starting and to the very end with respect to non-profit organizations. So starting, maintaining, evaluating, and so on. Once you go to our website, you'll find these materials. In a snapshot, this is what we have achieved so far. All of the capacity building we have done since 2017, more than 30 of them. Through our annual conference called the Breakfast Dialogue, we've also reached over 5,000 people. We've published 6 research products. Our Change Makers Innovation Challenge is a special project that we run during the year for change makers who are especially harnessing technology to do the great work that they do. And yes, our ACT Board, our podcast, where we talk about change makers and also build capacity, we've produced over 30 episodes of them. Okay, so this is also a snapshot of where we have reached so far. We have reached almost 3 million and still counting in just 7 years. We have worked with more than 98 nonprofits at the moment. And we have reached 1,200 African communities and still counting. Okay, so if you would like to make inquiries about ACT Foundation, you can write to us at programs@actrustfoundation.org. And we are also available on social media at Foundation _ on Instagram and Twitter or X, and on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We are Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. Okay, so I'm going to get out of your hair so that you get to the meat of the matter. I hope that you have your notebooks, your notepads ready. And now to introduce our speaker, I'm going to be calling on our Head of Grants and Programs, Ugochukwu, to please bring on our speaker. Over to you, Ugochukwu.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abiodun. I hope we've had fun so far. I think it's quite an honor to be introducing our speaker for today. I think my CEO has already made some very interesting remarks about him. Tochukwu is a leader in the finance and investment space. If you are somebody who has sought investment sometime as a startup anywhere in Nigeria, across West Africa, you must have heard about his name and the name of Africa Venture Philanthropy Alliance. I don't want to read his bio. It's on the screen. I'm sure you can quickly gloss through. But today you will be spoken to by somebody who understands what it means to actually pitch, and you also find out that his method of engagement is very simplistic and straight to the point. I know there'll be questions, but I doubt if there'll be a lot of them, because I think he's somebody that when you listen to him, you want to listen more, you want to engage. So please permit me to introduce my friend and my brother, Mr. Tochukwu Ezugbo. He's the regional director for Africa Venture Philanthropy Alliance in West Africa. Tochukwu, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ugochukwu, for that welcoming introduction. And I know that the audience is just waiting to get into it. Thank you so much, Abiodun, as well, for organizing and just coordinating. And I can only say thank you to the sensational CEO, Osai, for putting this together. Grateful for the work that ACT Foundation does in this space. So giving early stage, first time, very raw entrepreneurs in this ecosystem a chance at the door, or a foot at the door for many things: exposure, knowledge, funding, technical capacity, building and development. All of these things go a long way in shaping and building this entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem that we so gladly want to support. And having said that, I will then just speak a little about what we do at AVPA, and then we can get into the presentation. We are a Pan-African ecosystem builder, and whilst many of you are businesses or founders or SMEs or innovators, we are a network of investors, social investors on the continent, and what we do really is to build the capacity of investors. So we work primarily with investors, not businesses, to be able to unlock more capital towards impact or good or SDGs on the continent. And without going deep into it, what we find is that there's capital all across the globe, and there's capital on the continent, just that it's not flowing enough towards people like yourselves. And it's not because capital cannot flow. It's not because providers of capital are evil or cannot fund. It's just because there are a few gaps, and there are a few mismatches that prevent the capital that is available from flowing towards
some of the innovations on the continent. And in a separate class, we can go deeper into what those gaps are. But today, we're going to focus on what you can do to increase your own ability or your own opportunity to stand a chance at the door of not just funding, but also every other thing that you require. Because, most people, when they think of pitching, which is perhaps where I will start from, they think of pitching as almost sort of a special purpose activity. But pitching is really a skill, and by itself a life skill, right? So because whether it is that you want to, procure a lover, you're pitching. Whether it is you want to procure a friend, you're pitching. You're pitching anyway. So let's not think of pitching as just this special purpose activity that only happens when you want to go, get $5,000 from an organization or $10,000 for your business. Anyway, having said that, I'm glad and grateful to be doing this with everyone today. And I hope that as we do this, we move at least some people closer to their objective of securing whatever it is that they aspire to secure with this training. So let me have my slide up, please. Thank you. Right, thank you. So the sort of title says Pitch Perfect. Even though it can be controversial, because there will never be a time where and when your pitch is so perfect that it cannot or never improve. So, but we will manage the title and we'll go right into it. So I encourage you to note your questions, and I'm sure Abiodun and the team will manage this process and just tell us what to do with some of the questions. Hopefully, we can take questions on the go if they're urgent. Otherwise, we'll take them all at the end during Q&A. So yes, the first thing to do, really, guys, is I have been funding or helping to mobilize capital into various types of entities for at the very least 12 years. Whether it is on the commercial banking side of things or the investment banking side of things or the development finance side of things, or now the proper development, work, side of things. And through those years, we have picked up a few things that are relevant for your consideration as you think through your object and your strategy, or what you want to do. And so as you look at this slide, the first thing you should ask yourself is, do you have a solution, or do you just want to sell a product? I know they've told you that today we're teaching you how to pitch, pitch that product, pitch that idea, pitch that, but just to take a step back is to take this moment to reflect on whether you actually have a solution or you just want to pitch a product. And there are two different things, and I can explain. Most times, a product is simply an idea you're just emotionally attached to. You think of it, let's say you studied biochemistry, and I can start with a joke. If you guys know Lai Wasabi, he did one of his earliest skits was one skit where he said he was his final year project was to produce an electric generator, and he was pitching it to a final year panel. And they asked him to talk about the product, and he said it's an electric generator. You just plug the generator to electricity, and then it produces power. It sounds very, sounds very exciting. Sounds very innovative, but it's a very useless product because the electric generator can only produce power when there's light, when there's electricity. So what is the solution in it? It's a product. I mean, thought would have gone into it. Design would have gone into it. Passion would have gone into it. But what problem is it solving? And I tell you this, I'm not telling you because I have a presentation to make. I've seen many situations where it's just a fancy idea in your head. It's just you're just emotionally attached to this concept and an idea. I give you another example. One time, some lady who I was helping to set up a business, and we indeed set up the business, but I struggled hard to convince this person that this thing you're trying to sell will not sell it will not provide any solution to a Lagos market. And I can provide the example. So this person was setting up a breakfast shop for a Lagos market, and the idea was that, most people are too busy. They leave at home at 5 a.m. or in Lagos, and then by 7 they need to eat for work or 8. And so it's supposed to be a breakfast service between, say, 7 and 9 or 10. But I looked at the menu that this person has put together, and it was some continental French dishes, Swiss dishes, very continental. And I said to her that this market wants akara in the morning or something really local. This market wants, something relatable. That's when an average Lagosian is hungry in the morning, they are not thinking continental, dishes. And it took us many. If you look, have you been to a restaurant where you look at the entire list and you can't recognize anything on it? That's the type of menu we were dealing with at the time. And so we struggled until we came to a compromise and, got that business started. Why did I tell you these stories? I told you this story before you even start to pitch, to realize that there's a difference between a product you are so passionate and emotionally attached to, and a solution. A solution is an actual intervention that has studied a market, identified a need, and is actually filling an existing need in the market. Now, it does not mean that you cannot innovate. It does not mean that innovation cannot happen, such that even where the market doesn't know that it needs this solution, I can make the market know. In very few cases, there are very innovative products like that. But I promise you, in many cases, you are going to spend an awful amount of time realizing or trying to push a product that you so love, but the market does not recognize it. So this is the first thing I want to teach you today. Before you go out there learning all the complex pitching skills and all the complex narratives, you need to be sure that you have a product. You need to be sure that you have a product that is also a solution, not just a product because it's fancy or it's your idea. There's something I call the inventor's ego or the inventor's bias. You think the world needs it because you have produced it, and it's not true. Or you think the market loves it because you produced it. It's not true. It's actually the other way around. You should go and confirm that the market wants it. Then you should go in and produce it. We're people that are almost too fascinated about sensation. And so we think that the thing needs to be very novel, very complex, very innovative. It must be something that has never been seen before. It's not true. The people making the most money in this economy are selling the day-to-day things that I promise you. Recently, I watched an interview and I'm trying this to lay a good background for you that we can build all of this thing upon. Recently, I watched an interview of an artist in the US who they interviewed and said, which makes you more money, your artistry, your music, or your car wash business? And the guy smiled. He said that my car wash business makes me so much money that I don't even remember that I'm a musician. You know, and that got me thinking. And then I checked out what he was talking about. He runs a car wash franchise. So he goes to a local place that is a good location and either sets up a car wash franchise or buys the one that is there and turns it into his own franchise. And then he makes millions of dollars every year doing a car wash business. But if you had told someone to set up a car wash business, a young Nigerian or someone like you who's smart, intelligent, to set up a car wash business, you may think, why? It's so basic. Me, a whole graduate like me, setting up a car wash business. But if it's a solution, it's better than a fancy product that you will spend the next 5 years looking for funding for, that nobody will fund. I can go on and on. And the Indians and Pakistanis have mastered this thing. They come into your country, look for the things that they can sell for 100 naira each and target to sell 10 million units of it this month. And target to sell 100 million units of it this year. And they make a lot of money. I can give you examples. And I funded them before when I was in the bank. You know, they're selling nylon. They're selling your chocolates, your sweets. They're selling, what is this? Yes, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. This person says if the presenter could mix both business and NGO humanitarian works as well. Okay, that's fine. We're getting there. Just follow the thinking. So, and the principle is the same. So whether it's business, whether it's for profit business or social, full-blown social, not for profit, the principle is the same. So follow the principle. The examples are supposed to establish the principle. Now, what was I saying? Right. So that slide was supposed to help you understand that you can make the error of focusing too much on what you think is a product, whereas the market is vying for other types of solution, whether that's business or not for profit. Now, let's go into what you now really need once you have established that you have a solution that the market needs. How do you go about pitching it? And I need to lay again the emphasis I was trying to lay before around pitching as a life skill. So the first thing to do is to not think of pitching as something you do when you're looking for funding or something you do when you're looking for something. Pitching, you should view it as a life skill, right? It's a skill. And so you master the principles that make for a good pitch, not necessarily a template or a silver bullet approach or template that can get anyone who listens to you to just give you money after 5 minutes of hearing you. That's really not the goal. The goal is to imbibe the principles of a good pitch, which can be an elevator pitch. It can be just a day-to-day of selling yourself to your world. Selling yourself to your world is also a type of pitching. That means the way you conduct yourself on a daily basis, the way you approach life, the way you sell yourself even to people who are not trying to invest in you. It's a type of disposition to pitching, but all of that are principles that we can then now move on into formal pitches for funding or for other types of things, because you don't only pitch for the purpose of funding. You can pitch for technical assistance. You can pitch for technical support. You can pitch for partnerships that open you up into new markets, open you up into new environments, new relationships. You can pitch for anything. It's not just about funding. And I hope we don't get fixated on funding, even though funding is crucial and it's something you should put your eyes upon. What is the first thing that you should be doing as someone who wants to pitch for anything at all, including funding? The very first place you should start is to make sure that you have prepared really well. And there are three components of preparation. The first is research. And when we talk of research, we really don't mean that you should become a PhD student because you want funding, or that you should go and learn regression analysis to do some complex research computations. What research requires of you here is to do the very basic due diligence around the subject of your target. So, who is this funder that you are approaching? What do they typically fund? What in my proposition aligns with what they typically fund? How long do they typically fund for? What type of people do they fund? What is the ticket size do they usually fund? So if you go to, if you're looking for, and I can give you many examples. So if you have some social experiment that is good for the community, and that is good to be supported as a social experiment, which is a good thing for the community, for the environment, for the climate, or whatever, but it's not a business per se. You need to know who to approach for that type of thing. That's not the time to knock on the door of a commercial bank. We saw many of these in the bank. And so SMEs will swear on their mother's graves that banks are their enemies and banks hate them and banks hate businesses, but it's not true. You're just simply knocking on the wrong door. So the first place to start is to do a tiny little research. So whether it's a grant opportunity you have seen, research it well. Whether it's just that you have a need or a product or a solution and you're thinking of who to approach. And a research can be as simple as calling the right person. Oh, I see this person in church who I believe is an investment banker, who I believe is a grant maker, who I believe is somebody who is a consultant with maybe a big four, works with a senior person at KPMG or PwC or wherever. And I just need to run something by them. That's also research. But the mistake people make is to go from I need money to just knocking on the door of any investor they see. It's going to waste your time. It's going to potentially depress you, because even though you will hear a few no's in your history, on your journey, you need to manage your emotions. You need to manage how many no's you hear on a consistent basis. So the first thing you need to do is to research. Just research the basic things. Who is this funder? Are they going to fund me? Do they fund my type of work? Things like that, so that you streamline your requests. What we find is that most people don't do enough research. They just see, oh, the first thing, and then they apply. Oh, there's some opportunity, they just apply. Or they just think they will qualify. So do your research. Try to do that research. And research, again, is not a truckload of papers. It's really asking the right questions. You may not need to even Google a single thing in a good research. A good research is asking the right questions. And that can be a question to even your elder brother or your elder sister who knows better. It can be a simple question to some banker around you. It can be a simple question. So research here is, are you asking the right question? After you have done a good research, you then need to organize the findings from your research into an orderly presentation, an orderly storytelling. And I will speak a little bit about storytelling later. Because when we tell people to tell a good story, what they think we are saying is that they should find some story and say, oh, one day in my house, myself and my mom and my siblings were sleeping and the flood came and just, disorganized us, and we had to leave the house that evening and went to our auntie's place and slept. And then woke up the next morning, and from that day, I just decided that I must do something about flooding. And so I'm setting up a flooding business. Now, that is part of it, but that's not everything we mean when we say tell a good story. Tell a good story, in fact, is sometimes people have believed what I've just said now, or this example I just gave now, so much that that's all they think storytelling is about. But that's not what it is. Storytelling really is about the sequencing of the presentation that you are making. How followable, that's actually what storytelling is. How followable is this presentation from where you started, where you are now, where you seem to be going with this idea? That's actually what storytelling is. Not necessarily that emotive, oh, we were not eating well in our house, and then, oh, one day I just made up my mind that, oh, no, it may be a component of it, but that's not really what we mean when we tell you to tell a story. When we tell you to tell a good story, we mean organize your thoughts. Organize the things that you learned from the simple research that you have made, who to approach, when to approach, why not to approach, how much to approach for, what type of things to be asking for. How do you organize all the insights from your research into a followable sequence for the investor? That's actually what storytelling is. In fact, I do deal presentations or deal rooms a lot. And one of the feedback that has gotten to me a lot from hands-on investors is that people have solved too much for this. Oh, one day we were in the room, the area was smelling. So because it was smelling, I vowed that the investors, they found millions of dollars in investment. That story, that thing you think is storytelling, is not going to bring out $1 million from the pocket of an investor if the sequencing of your storytelling is not organized enough for the investor to follow it. So that's number 2, organization. You need to organize. Then number 3, you need to, and whether this is social enterprise or plain vanilla non-profit, or even plain vanilla for-profit business, the principle is the same. Number 3 is that you need to then rehearse. Many of you, and Abiodun was asking you, how do you say so much words in your, how do you say so words in your native language? Some of you, the native language is there, is latent in your head, but to be able to speak it, one day you try it one day, just for some of you who are not native speakers of your languages. If we put you on the spot to just say a few words in your language, you'll be shocked at how much English or lingua franca will be in it. You know why? Many of the things you are attempting to say, they're here, they're there. But in delivering it, you will fail the test of organization. Why? Because you have not rehearsed. Now, I've borrowed that example, but what I'm saying here is no matter how much research you have done, no matter how much organization you have put into the work, you also need to rehearse it. You need to simply rehearse, take it to somebody, speak to it, speak through it to someone. Don't deceive yourself. I've been in all sorts of pitching environments and deal rooms. People right in front of you on D-Day are just realizing they can't say what they want to say. They can't communicate what they want to communicate. They were so confident. It is in rehearsing that you realize even some missing information, some things you are explaining to someone, the person will just hear it and say, but it's not in your document, so add it or remove it, or things like that. So capture this. I've spent some time here for a reason, because it almost builds the foundation of what you need to be doing going forward. Research, organize, and rehearse. Next. This is another really important slide, and I hope that time doesn't work against us today, but I think we will finish on time. But this slide is what I have called the impression slide. Impression is everything, guys. Impression is everything. I tell my friends a lot that, well, or I tell people this a lot, that the same person you ask for 10,000 naira that will not give you, or wherever you're joining from, Tanzania, Rwanda, everywhere. The same person you ask for, so let's just use naira, because I believe that most people on this call will be Nigerians, I suspect. The same person you're going to ask for 10,000 naira that will say, no, I don't quite have. Will actually lend another person 4 million naira 2 hours after you ask them for 10,000 naira. The difference is impression. The money you seek is always around you, whether it is in fact, whatever you seek is always around you. Whether it's as an individual in terms of personal finance, and I teach this deeper when I teach personal finance. I teach credibility and capacity a lot in personal finance. And I teach how that you need to build your capacity and you need to build your credibility to attract funding. You know, I have just done a multi-country booking that costs me, you know, something substantial. But I did it by a simple instruction. I just instructed my agent, book this flight, and the flight has been booked, and it costs maybe $2,500. I have not spent a dime, but I have spent my reputation. I'm going to pay. But the reason I'm able to give that instruction is because I have reputation. And this person knows my impression, the impression that they get from me is that easily this person can pay, right? So, but that's personal finance, and I sort of teach a different curriculum there. But back to this example. The example here is that you should be mindful about your impression, right? And so I'll speak through 4 things here that are the pillars of your impression. Number 1 is authenticity. Authenticity here is to be sure that you're not trying to be like anybody. You're truly being yourself. You can learn from people, pick up a few things from people, but don't try to be like anybody else. Don't try to form an accent or form some behavior or just form a persona. Be who you are. You'll be shocked that who you are is actually the person that one investor is looking for or one partner is looking for, that type of person that you actually are. This is relevant for friendships, relevant for every other thing, relevant in business, relevant even in your faith. And those of you who believe in God, you know, they say that God wants you the way you are, but, you know, digressing, I'm saying, focus on your authenticity. There's something that you carry that the world actually needs. So don't try to be like another person. But whether it is your personality or your business, don't try to do your business like another person does it, or your organization like another person does it, or your affair like another person does it, or just, you know, you're not confident in who you are. So you want to describe yourself like another person, or you want to package yourself like another person. Kill it. Kill that idea. Keep your originality. The way you speak can improve in terms of style, but that's the way you speak. The way you look can improve in terms of aesthetics and all of that, but that's the way you look. Or that's your makeup. The way your business idea is what it is. You know, you can steal ideas here and there to make it great, but at the core of it, who you are is who you are. All right. So I'm asking you to retain your authenticity. Don't lie. Don't extra package. Don't ultra enhance just because you're not confident of your story, of who you are, of how you are. So authentic. The reason is that if you are actually going to speak to investors who are experienced, they will know anyway. They will know whether you're lying or whether you're not being yourself. One time, I presented 5 businesses. 2 of them eventually went on to get $1.5 million in funding from investors that I now work with. One of the feedback, and I can even, you know, one of the feedback from one of the, I think this banker was the alternative bank in Nigeria. You know Sterling Bank. There's an offshoot from it, which is Alternative Bank. They used to be called sterling non-interest. So one of the investors from that organization was giving me a feedback about one particular business. And everybody thought the business was great. And the investor called me after the pitch and after the deal room that, this girl that has just pitched, I like everything else, but I don't believe her. I don't think she's authentic. I don't think she's telling the truth. Guess what? We eventually investigated months down the line. This is me, now engaging that ecosystem. And I found it true that many of the things she said that day were actually not as true as she presented them. And so I say this story to say to you that investors are not foolish. They will pick your authenticity anyway if they are that experienced. Now, I'll pivot to appeal. These are some of the pillars of your impression. People respond to a good appeal. The same person, one person approaches and says, please, can I get 2 weeks leave? And the person says no. Another person approaches the same person for the same 2 weeks leave and gets it. So people respond to a good appeal. I'm asking you, as young people, and I don't know your ages, but I assume that there'll be a lot of young people trying to innovate businesses and trying to innovate ideas. You need to invest in your appeal. Invest in your appeal, how you speak, what you say, how you carry yourself, your sharpness, bluntness, your refinement. Now, and I'm saying this right next to authenticity for a reason, because in trying to be authentic, you may think that I will just accept me the way I am. That's the way I talk. Yes, that way you are talking can stop you from making it in life. That way you are talking can actually stop you from appealing well. People respond to a good. I can give you examples for days. I can give you examples for weeks of how one appeal different from another appeal, the same request, one gets it, one doesn't get it. So I'm asking you, these are investments in your appeal, investments in your character. And how do you do this? Take a tiny little Google, YouTube thing, 2 minutes video that can just sharpen you a bit in the way you ask a question, in the choice of words that you use, how to say no, how to object, or how to handle objection when you receive it, things like that. Tiny little things like that can form over time what your appeal is. There are people that say no to you. You will feel so blessed that they said no to you. But there are people that will say no to you. You will feel crushed and defeated. The difference is appeal. So you need to learn the principles of appeal. You can take down a note now, get on YouTube later today, just Google something. Whatever comes to your head, you will find a solution. You'll find something. You'll find a material. Just keep investing in how appealing you are. It's a thing. Don't be rigid. Don't say, because I've said stay authentic. You now stay unrefined, unappealing. It will affect your journey. It will affect your pitch. Whether that is you pitching in life as you live your life, or whether you're actually standing. Do you know, one time I was at an interview and my body language was so funny. And later on, this was many years ago, over 15 years ago. And I got an opportunity to receive feedback later on an informal basis. And they told me that that everything your body language was saying that day was, you are arrogant, you don't need this thing, you are just flimsy. Look, I promise you, if you had given me 10,000 options to say why I did not get it, I would not have gone to body language. I did not know. But they were gracious enough to give me that feedback. So I'm telling you that appeal works. It does, whether it is a written appeal or just your appeal as a person. And we can move forward. I'll take the next two very quickly because of time. Because of the first two things, or because of appeal, domino and the horn effect are then obviously real. Domino effect is the positive and horn effect is the negative. What is domino effect? Domino effect says that because of a good appeal, if someone thinks that you are good at A, they will most likely think that you are good at B and also think you are good at C. That means if they get the first impression about you and it's great, they will extend that first impression to other things. If you are respectful and somebody gets a good impression from you being respectful, they are more likely to think that you are competent, except, of course, it's very obvious. And you know this if you have worked before. People simply get promotions because they are loved, or they are, they are fancied, or they are respectful. I'm showing you this tendency, and I'm not saying it's your only tool. Remember, this is our second slide or third slide. There are other things down the line. But I say this, that you should be mindful, following from the principles of appeal. The domino effect says that, and that is why people who get funded more subsequently. If the person who gets $5,000 is more likely to get the next $50,000, more likely to get the next $100,000. That's the domino effect at play. That when you are taught at being good at X, the likelihood that you will be taught at being good at Y and Z is also high. That's the domino effect. The same is true for a horn effect. If you appear with a poor appeal, let's say you appear somewhere, you came late, you dressed shabbily, it's more likely that they would think that you are going to be an incompetent person. Why? If you cannot manage your shoe, why do you think you can manage my $20,000? So you need to be mindful of those effects. It's a real effect, whether you hate it or not, that's not your business. It's a real psychological reality, right? So, it may not be true. You may be the most excellent person. You may be the most competent person, right? But if I already think that you are rude, you are shabby, you are flippant, I can extend that thinking into that you will be incompetent, and I will not be wrong, right? Next one is the final thing I'm going to emphasize. Now, all of these are all principles that govern your pitch, yeah? Whether it's a physical pitch where you stand and do a 5-minute speech, or it's just your life as a pitch, or it's just your everyday pitch, it doesn't matter. It's the principle that counts. The final thing here is, I teach this in an SME masterclass, and I spend about 25 minutes talking about how to win. And it's a mindset. It's not some set of strategies. It's not like 5 A's or 5 C's of doing anything. It's to carry yourself in a way that allows you to win before you fight. So it's a mental disposition, right? For instance, I teach people, I say in that masterclass, I say to them, don't describe your business. They ask you, they say, please talk about your business. If this was a physical class now, do an experiment. People say, what do you do? Say, I manage one small business. That's a problem. The fact that you think of it as a small business, I just manage one small business. It's a mental disposition. So this is me calling you to say that thing that you have is big enough. The world can see it. That small idea that you are thinking, is just one small thing out of some Mulungu in Uganda or small Bagada in Lagos. That small idea can rule the world. Behave it. So if you're a fashion designer, for instance, and you make your wares or your things out of one small location in some place in Lagos that even you are not proud of your environment, guess what? You are the only one that knows it. When you come out to the world, don't behave your limitations, behave your expectation, right? Don't allow your knowledge of where you are or your flaws or your limitations. This plays out in things like pricing. People can't price competitively because their mind is defeated. And they think, it's this small thing that I just make in one small corner. Meanwhile, your mate in China is selling that same thing for $33. And he makes it the same way you make it. And he's going to sell 1 million units this year. So I'm asking you to not be small, whether you get funding or you don't get, or that idea can be valid, it can go global, it can rule the world, right? All of these are the components of impression, because if you don't believe it, who should believe it? Who should believe it? That simple idea can get to the UN. That simple NGO problem you are solving for that tiny little community can get a United Nations award. It can. Who says it cannot? But if you, who is the carrier, progenitor of the idea, don't believe it and don't see it that way, and I'm not calling you to pride, I'm calling you to win. Win first in your head before you get out there on the streets. Next. Now, again, you will see that I'm focusing on the principle. Look, and it is this principle that you need to structure your pitch, yeah? Whether it's a physical pitch where you're speaking to, or it's a written speech or whatever, this is the principle, and you follow it. Now, in terms of what investors look for, all of these things I'm teaching you, all of them are important. But one thing you must focus all your energy in is how to describe your business model. You will lose the investor. You will lose the investor. Whether it's an investor, partner, or whatever, you will lose the investor if they struggle after your 10 minutes explanation. They still struggle to, okay, so this business or this idea. So you mean that, what does it mean? So how do you make money? What is the order of, if after 5 minutes of speaking, I still have plenty questions to understand what this business truly, really is about, you have not passed this test of business model. So all of these things I'm teaching you, I need you to pause and focus on this one. Get a book, quickly do a YouTube scan, something, anything that gets you to be able to explain your business model the most succinct way. That if I hear it, even if I'm not interested, I know exactly what you are doing. And in fact, I don't have to be interested. If I'm not interested, if I know exactly what you're doing, and it is clear and succinct in the first 3 minutes of you explaining it, I'm even able to forward it to somebody who will be interested because I understand it. So half of the time, the problem with pitches is that after all these slides, I still don't know what this idea is about. The investor is still confused, he's asking many questions, he still does not understand. So your biggest secret, in addition to these things I've taught you so far, is your ability to explain your business model in the most succinct way, in the clearest way. And how do you do that? And that's all that the investor is listening for. I cannot count how many things. I mean, we did a deal room with ACT, I believe last October, and I sit in these places all the time. Half of the time, the struggle with investors is they are listening to you, they are looking at your slide, but they still don't know what the business is. So if you need one thing to take away from this presentation, take away your ability to explain your business in the most succinct way. First principle there is really, what problem does this business solve? You need to be able to explain this in the most clearest way. That's superlative, most clearest, right? For English students. Now, it's actually clearest, but I'm saying, guys, this is your biggest deal. And it's important, if you sit in front of investors, if they will not invest, they want to know in 3 minutes, they want to know in 5 minutes. So what problem? So focus on 3 things. If you're preparing a slide, make sure your slide, or if you're speaking to it, make sure that your slide has spoken to 3 things. 1, what problem does it solve? What market does it serve? And 3, how does it make money? So if it's a business that is supposed to make money and return profit, how does it do so? So what is the cycle? What do I buy? Or make? And then how much does it cost me to make it? Who do I sell it to? How much do they pay me? How much am I going to make in return to make a profit? Things like that, in the simplest ways. If you're a not-for-profit, what is the value creation story? What is the value creation cycle? Because you think the era of not-for-profits or even social enterprises who should not actually be, people confuse social enterprising or social enterprises for businesses that should not be viable. And it's not true. That you're a social enterprise does not mean that you will not be viable. It just means that you don't exist for the profit, or that profit is a secondary consideration for you. Are you with me? So how does it make money? So 3 questions you should be asking. Every time you put up a slide that explains your business model, show it to someone, ask someone, has he answered these 3 questions? What problem does it solve? What market does it address? And exactly how does it make money or create value? For businesses, how does it make money? Simple. We buy or we make. At a cost, we make a margin and we return. Are we able to do it sustainably over time? That's easy. For, what is it called? For social enterprises and for pure NGOs, how do you create value? You still need to show us how you create value, even if that value is not profit. So that business model is something everyone must invest in an ability to demonstrate, right? So whether it is you're speaking or it's that you have a pitch, a PowerPoint presentation, your slide on business model must answer these 3 questions. And if you have questions, note them down. When we get to Q&A, I'll take them next. Here, you know that thing I told you when I was telling you how to organize your pitch. So remember the second slide, which was research, organize, rehearse. Yeah? That organization I told you that is actually the real storytelling. Here is exactly where you should demonstrate it. We look through pitches a lot and we can see the traction. In fact, at the end of a pitch, I cannot count how many times I've asked people, I said, so can you tell me what your traction has been? So in any pitch, you should be answering the question of traction. Where you started, and if you are just starting, say so, that this is where we are. But you also need to be able to show where you are if you had already started. And then you need to be able to demonstrate where you want to be. This dynamic and the interplay in my mind as an investor between where you are, where you were, and where you are going is actually the story. It's actually the story. It's not that, oh, we were sleeping and we could not eat for 5 days. That can be a tiny little element. But the real story is how I am able to follow where you were to where you are now and to where you seem to be going to. And I'm not talking fancy ideas. Oh, next year I want to make 10 billion. No, I'm saying an actually practically projected sequence of traction. When we started, we were this. These were our numbers. Here is where we are today. These are our numbers. Here is where we will be. These will be our numbers when this investment is received, or when this funding is received, or when this support is received, or when this partnership is achieved, right? So your traction is another slide or component of your pitch that you don't want to joke with. You want to give extreme thought. You want to put extreme thinking into how you show where we are today. What are the details of where we are today? What are the details of where we were yesterday? What are the details of where we want to be? And why is it that we will get there? It can be the funding you are receiving. It can be the partnership you are receiving. It can be things like that. All right? So focus on telling a good story with your traction. And it is this traction that tells your story, actually. Not any fancy things people just come up with randomly. Your traction is your story. All right? Next. Please make sure you're noting your questions. Don't try to remember. You may not remember. Note your questions down. Right. Okay. So, and I can see all of the interaction going on in the charts, and all the countries. Guys, good engagement going. The next component of your pitch, and don't forget, each of these slides are components of your pitch, right? So I'm not going to tell you how to design, what to put on your, that's not my job. My job is to tell you the components of your pitch, yeah? Jackson is asking if I will share the presentations later. Well, if I feel like it, if I feel like Trump, I will cancel the presentation. If I feel like Tochukwu, then I'll send it. Anyway, let's move. So the ask, again, whether it is a pitch on a day-to-day basis, or an elevator pitch, or a pitch you're sending, or a proposal you're putting in, there's got to be an ask. What is the ask? What is the ask? And so many people obviously people know to ask, but they don't do the due diligence of doing all of these things before they ask. The ask is an important component, but you have to have done the early work. You've got to have done, if someone met you on the street today and said to you, let me choose a random name here, Evelyn. I've seen a lot of Evelyn today, so let me just choose Evelyn. I'd like to choose Jackson. And someone stops you and says, Evelyn, on the road of wherever you are, and says, so on some streets in Uganda, on Kampala, and says to you, Evelyn, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I stopped you abruptly. Right now, I am on my way to the hospital and my sister is dying. And you can estimate or actually see the sister dying, and people, and they're rushing to the hospital. Your empathy is unlocked, right? Unlike, and I hope I'm giving you the perfect example. Unlike if somebody just randomly meets you on the streets of Kampala and says, "Hi, good afternoon. Please, I'm in need. I just need 10,000, whatever your currency is." You're most likely going to be like, what's going on here? That's the difference between doing all of these early work and then making the ask. And just, skipping and skimming through the early work and just coming to say you need $500,000 for X, Y, and Z. So the ask is important, but I'm asking you to make sure that you have not skipped all of that early work and due diligence that requires you, or that does that prepares the ground for the ask to be received. So if you say to me, you now need $100,000 because of all of the things that you have said, building up to the ask. In my mind, once you make the ask, I'm now thinking, I'm connecting it again. Storytelling. I'm connecting it to where you were, where you are now, and where you're going. So now, but there are principles of that ask. So how much is it, for instance? That's why you have the question mark there. How much are you asking? Now, depending on where you are, your stage of business, you may need to specify whether you need that ask in equity, you need it as debt, you need it as grants, you need it as a mix of a few. But you need to make a definite ask, right? So how much do I need? Now, don't forget that ask is not a standalone thing, because sometimes you even lose your investor. When you're making an ask that is disconnected from your story, that ask should not be disconnected from everything they were hearing all along. You have said, you need this, you need it. In fact, this has happened to me many times. One time, some lady said she was raising 600,000. She was trying to raise 600,000. Oh no, she wanted to raise funds. So I met her at Sheraton. I said, let me hear this thing. I have 1 hour. And she says, I need X and Y. I said, okay, good. Tell me how much you need. And it turns out she needs $600,000. So I said, 600,000 naira at the time, many years ago. And I said to her, okay, good. You need 600,000 naira. Let's look through your business. How much do you make on a monthly basis? How much do you make on how much? And we realized that this person makes 1 million naira in revenue every month. And so as a finance person, something ticks in my mind. Why do you make 1 million naira every month? And you have done this business for nearly 2 years, and you now need 600,000 naira as capital or as some investment. What is happening to all of the 1 million naira you make on a monthly basis? And then we went into further analysis. We now realized that though she was making around 1 million naira every month, and it is true, revenue, her cost structure was deficient. And that 600,000 she was looking for was actually hidden in her cost structure. So she only needed to save costs, reorganize cost structure, and get that 600,000 from that mix. And we did it. So I'm saying to you that your ask is not some flippant thing you should do. You should make sure your ask follows the story, right? And investors or owners of capital are not Father Christmas. There are people who have money to give you. They have targets to give you money. They have obligations to give you money. But again, your ask must be consistent with your story. So answer a few of these questions. What type of money are you looking for? And in any case, if you have done your research well, you will ordinarily anyway be sitting in front of the type of money you are looking for, right? But the point really here is your ask. Has your ask been well structured? Is it well investigated? Is it well researched? And then does it tally with all of the things you have said up to this point? Next. Following your ask would be, so you can't just need $100,000. What do you need it for? That's fund utilization. So the numbers matter. Look, I can, both in my days as an investment banker and as a commercial banker, I've seen all sorts of applications that in a simple analysis, I either realize your numbers are not right, or your numbers don't follow the story, or your numbers don't support the ask, or like too many things, right? But I'll follow these 4 components of the numbers. Number 1 is fund utilization. These $100,000, I know many of you know to do these things, but give it a little more thought. What are we going to use it for? What are you going to use it for? What is component number 1? Component number 2. Now, it's not just to share components into 100,000 and present. Is that the thinking that has gone into why 20,000 is going into what? Why 40,000 is going to what? That thinking is what the investor is actually auditing. Why are you spending 60,000 of your 100,000 that you are requesting? Why are you spending it on marketing for a business that does not require marketing? In Ghana last year, I was presenting a business to investors, and one of the businesses said that he has too many orders that he cannot fulfill. Too many orders. It was a climate business. And I think this person produces a renewable energy kit or something like that. Oh, that as of today, he has a list of orders. And so I was wondering, if you have this much orders, and in fact, he says that they are willing to pay in advance for it. I said, so if they are willing to pay in advance for it, why are you begging for money? Why don't you structure yourself credibly enough to be able to receive a few orders and meet the demand? Anyway, my point is that the investor does not just want to see a randomly organized fund utilization. Oh, 10,000 will go for this, 20,000 will go for this. It is the thought that went into the organization and whether that thinking matches the story you have been telling that the investor is looking for. And whether this is for profit or not for profit, what you're trying to use the money for has to match the ask and also match the story. But in the first place, in fact, some people forget to show us a fund utilization. What do you want to use the money for? And sometimes what you want to use the money for may determine how we give it to you or whether we even give it to you. So for instance, let's say you have a need for 100,000, but in the first 3 years, you will only need 50,000 of it. An investor may take a decision and say, the other 50,000, we don't need to give it to you now. You're going to spend the first 3 years doing research. Then the following 3 years, you will now use it to start building something. But 50,000 will go into that build. Then 50,000 will go into research. So why should we give you 100,000 today? An investor can take that position to manage risk so that they don't give you $100,000 and you gotta marry a third wife. Are you with me? So your fund utilization is important. It's a list that shows how you want to deploy the money you are asking for. Number two, income statement. This is again both for profit-making entities and not-for-profit entities. You still need to show how this business will receive revenue and what it will cost this your business to earn that revenue, and then what will be remaining afterwards. That's your income statement. Whether that is profit or surplus, it's still income statement. You need to be able to demonstrate that in a pitch. Once this business starts fully and properly, what is all the revenue from all sources? What is all costs into all sources? And what is remaining? Whether that's a profit or a loss is irrespective. It's just that you need to show it for a given period of time. So you want to show it, the average really is to show it for 3 years. Some people extend it to 5 years, but you need to be able to show what that outlook is. What is everything I will make versus everything it will cost me versus what will remain? I need to be able to see it, then I can ask questions. So why are you doing this so great business and in 5 years it does not make profit? Or why are you saying you will make so much profit? For instance, if you say in year 1 you will make one tiny profit, but in year 2 you make so great a profit that it's even more than how much I'm giving you. So I may decide to give you half of that money since you will make so much in year 2. You know, so the numbers don't lie. To savvy investors, the numbers don't lie. Actually, the numbers don't lie. So you've got to be able to show what the numbers are, you know, in a very, you know, truthful position. So that's income statement. And I'm telling you, the components of your pitch, these are things that your investors are looking for. You need to be able to, if you don't show it, they will ask. And the more questions your investors have about the things you don't have, the less confidence they have in your pitch. The next is let me go to cash flow projection. Cash flow projection is different from income statement. Cash flow projection just shows the relationship between cash, the relationship or the interplay between all sources of cash, all sources and all outlets of cash, right? So income statement usually shows revenue. That means when you sell and receive money, or when you offer a service and receive money. But cash flow is cash from all sources, including the investment you're looking for. When you receive it, which other sources are you going to receive cash from? And then what else are you going to use cash to do? You can Google this. You know, this will be like a separate, teaching you cash flow projection is a separately different class, but a cash flow projection shows how much cash you will receive over a given period of time, how much cash you will deploy over a given period of time, and how much cash balance you're going to have over a given period of time. It's different from an income statement. Income shows profitability. Cash flow shows cash position, because you can be profitable, but you don't have cash. You can actually have cash and not be profitable. There's a tiny interplay between cash and profit, but that's an accounting class, right? Yeah, go back to the former slide. I just explained amortization. These are components. The reason this is important is because you also need to be showing if you are taking monies that you need to return. That's where amortization comes in. So for instance, if you are taking debt, which is like a loan from a bank, or you are taking, sorry, I have something pop up, so I'm reading through it. So if you're taking loan from a bank, or you are taking a source of investment that you need to return, you need to show, in fact, sometimes there's such a thing as returnable or refundable grants. You need to be able to demonstrate and show how and what is the sequence and what is the frequency of the return of that money. For a loan, it's very simple. The bank will give you an amortization table, which shows how much of principal and or interest you are repaying on a regular basis. But the principle is what I want you to take into consideration, which is if I'm borrowing or if I'm taking money that I need to repay, you need to show the investor how this your endeavor will repay it and on what terms or on what basis. That's what an amortization does. All of these are sort of like the components of what you should show your investor when you're demonstrating your numbers. Next. Now, you see on your screen that you also need to tell an impact story. Now, this is becoming more popular to say that we can run businesses that, return a measurable or that produce a measurable level of environmental and social impact, as well as the return profit. So while your numbers speak to actual figures and numbers from your business or from your endeavor, there's also an impact story that you must tell. So the previous slide is saying tell a numbers story. This is saying tell an impact story. From this your endeavor, how are you tracking how many jobs are being created, for instance, if that's an impact number? And these things are just examples. For your own endeavor, the impact story can be different. How are you tracking the livelihoods that are being changed or improved or enhanced as a result of your business? How are you tracking the environmental improvement happening? Are you saving emissions, greenhouse gases? How are you tracking? So the point of this is to say that the impact of your endeavor can be beyond money. And if it is, you owe yourself and you owe your investors and you owe your targets and subjects and stakeholders the duty to tell that story well. Now, I'm not saying that, obviously, investors are not foolish people. They will check and they will audit. You can't just bogusly claim that you are creating 1 billion jobs. They are going to check. You can't just say that you have supported 10 billion livelihoods. No, you can't just do that, of course. You have to stay with integrity. But I'm saying that you need to find the things in your endeavor, in your business, in your structure, in your NGO, whatever it is you do, that are important, that are beneficial, and that are impactful beyond numbers, beyond profit, beyond cash, to be able to accentuate as well. Sometimes you have it, you just don't know it. All right. So on jobs, for instance, you can estimate direct jobs and you can estimate indirect jobs. And you can just sort of just Google how to estimate that or find another type of support on how to estimate direct and indirect jobs. But it's a thing out there. So certain investors I know an investor who gives money to social enterprises. He wants it to be a grant, but he doesn't want the investee to know that it's a grant. So he structures it as some type of equity, just so that you take it seriously. But his real impact, his real interest is in checking whether you are creating enough jobs or whether you are affecting enough livelihoods, in the environment where you are doing that business or that endeavor. So there are investors like that look really increasingly for the impact of your business beyond the money, beyond the cash, beyond the profits, even if they coexist with these impacts. So ask yourself, these things I have put here, what is it for your own endeavor? Is it jobs? Is it livelihoods? Is it environment? Is it savings of time? Is it health? Is it health outcomes? Are you saving people burdens in healthcare? What is it? All right. So you've got to sit down and do a real analysis of what the impact of your business is beyond profit. Next. Another component of a good pitch, again, don't forget, all these are components of a good pitch, irrespective of how you say it, whether you say it in Kiswahili, or you say it in English, or you have a fancy PowerPoint presentation, or you're saying it with your mouth. What is important is that you are addressing these key components. One thing that we see all the time is that, businesses make this, and you are inclined to do that. This fancy presentation about how my business will just happen. On day one, I'll sell 20,000 units. On day two, I'll sell 100,000 units. On day three, I'll sell 1 million units. And, you are so happy and presenting to us. But we are experienced people. We know that on that day one, they can lock up your streets. On that day one, your phone can die and nobody calls you. On that day one, government can declare a public holiday and nobody is supposed to move. Do you imagine how many businesses if those of you who are in Nigeria and live in Port Harcourt, imagine how many business models have been affected by yesterday's announcement, for instance, in Rivers State. So why did I say this? I say this to say that, look, before your investors start asking you about the risks that can affect your business, you should answer it yourself. It shows that you are not in a fantasy. It shows that you are not deluded. So if you make a presentation and the investor is the one now saying, have you considered this risk? Have you considered that risk? Have you considered that risk? If you have not considered it, it reduces his confidence in your business or your ability to manage it, because how do you know you will succeed if you don't know all the things that can militate against you? It's better that you know the things that can militate against you. Say so, and then say what you are doing or what you will do if any of them happen, because they may not happen. Yes, they may not happen. So one of them will be political risk. One of them may be political risk, and everybody, I think you know what political risk means. And I'll just select maybe two more and then talk about it. But I'm saying the practice here is think of which risks are specific to your business, because don't kid yourself. There are risks. You can wake up, look, I was speaking at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I was giving them the example of a business that was funded. It's an edtech business that some of you might know. And they returned the investment back to their investor. Why? They received the investment after all the work and everything. And then they realized that this market that they are trying to serve does not have the purchasing power to afford the product that they have. And so they had the integrity enough to say, investors, we don't think we'll make good use of this money. We need to refund this money, because the market we thought we were going to serve don't have enough purchasing power to keep us in business. And they returned the capital. I mean, it's in the news. So that's market risk. So there's actually risks. I can spend another 2 hours teaching you risk management. But the principle for you here, for the purpose of pitching, is that take the best 2 or the most likely 2 or 3 risks that may affect your business and the investment of the investor, and talk about it, and then give confidence that you know that this risk exists. Not just that you go and pick any risk and put on the screen. Study the ones that affect your business or that can affect your business, and demonstrate A, that you know that the risk exists, but B, that you know what to do should it happen, right? I won't go through all the risks. For instance, key man risk is a risk. Some of you do a business that you are the only person. If anything happens to you, that business cannot work, or that business cannot run. Currency risk is another. If you are in Nigeria, you will see this one, nobody needs to preach this one to you, right? So understand your risk management framework and be able to communicate it before your investor asks. Next. Yes, I think this is the final slide, I believe. The importance, and I think many of you do this, you have a pitch and you just put your team there. So it's not like a new thing for you to show your team, but you need to know why you are doing it. So part of the reason investors want to see your team is not just, is it only you, it's for you to accentuate what exactly in those team members make you a solid team. So maybe one person is a technical guy. He's a guy that studied this thing and he knows it from back to back. So highlight it. This other guy is a sales guy. He knows sales like the back of his hands. Highlight it. So it's not just a CV thing or a picture thing, you pose and you find picture. No, that's not what you need this team slide for. It's to highlight what element of this team that makes it a solid team. Remember, you have been telling a story all along. So it is this guy that is the technical guy, is the guy that knows this climate thing from top to bottom. This guy is the sales guy. This guy is the operations guy. Is the guy that keeps all our promises to our customers. This guy. So it is the element of each person that brings value to the team and the market that it serves, that you should use this team, not like a long CV of titles. And no, it's really just highlight why each person in the team is relevant to this story that you have been telling all along. Right? So it's not a picture slide. It's not the best. Pictures are good. Use good pictures, but highlight why each person in the team is relevant to the story. Next. So, having done all these things, you need a call to action. Don't forget, you have asked for $100,000 before. But after you ask, you have done fund utilization, you have done plenty of things, they've asked you questions, you have done all of that. You need to end by still making a call to action, because there's such a thing as a recency effect, right? You need to remind them that all of this beautiful story I told you is so you can give me $100,000, or you can give whatever that number is. So repeat the ask in a very soft way, but you need a call to action. And if the call to action is not money, repeat it. If it's money and other things, repeat it. You need $100,000 and a partnership in this area. Or you need $100,000 and a hand holding this thing. You need $100,000 and a market penetration, something. But repeat the ask so that it's the last thing in the face, mind, sight, and ears of your investor. You always need a call to action. And sometimes we see pitches and we receive pitches that we don't know what to do next. So now that you have told me all these things, what should I do next? Right? Next. This is, I think, the time all of you have been waiting for. To ask all the questions that you have to ask, all comments. End of quote. And I see all of you interacting in this. Let me also join your interactions by saying you can look me up on LinkedIn as well, and we can interact further there. Over to you, Abiodun.
I apologize. Yes, I was trying to unmute my mic. Thank you so much, Tochukwu Ezeoku, for that. I would like to see your emojis in the chat room, your hand claps. If you want to give him roses, please go ahead. I think that was really awesome. I was seeing also a couple of comments in the chat room. Great presentation. This is eye-opening. This is awesome. This is great. I also saw a couple of people asking for the slides. I hope you were actually listening, because we will need the speaker's permission to share his intellectual property. All right, so this is a good time to ask your question. All right, so I'll go over to the Q&A. I think I see a couple of people asking about the slides. Do we get the recording? Do we get the slides? About the recording, you will have it on YouTube. It's going to be on YouTube, because now we're streaming live on YouTube. So at the end of this session, you can always refer back to it on our channel, which is ACT Foundation. Okay, I'll go to YouTube where we have a couple of questions, and I'll start with this one. It says, sometimes people find it hard to put facts with traction as they seem so small. How should you approach that? Did you get that, or would you like me to repeat?
Please repeat the question. I was interrupted by it.
So, all right, then I'll take it again. It says, sometimes people find it hard to put facts with traction as they seem so small. So I'm guessing this person has started something, but they think that their numbers are not great or not enough to even stir an investor or a funder's interest. So he's asking, how should you approach that in your presentation, in your proposal, or in your pitch?
No, that's an interesting question. But remember that we started by saying that you should be authentic, right? Yeah. So that it's your story. It's your story. That's your story. There's no need to say that you have done 10 million if you have just done 10. That's your story. Let me tell you, there's somebody who's looking to, there's a particular investor who wants to support the person who is at 10. That is you that investor is looking for. Is that story you are trying to edit and accentuate, that you are actually losing. That investor is looking for you. So stay authentic and then be able to show that where we are at now is now a little different from that place where we're coming from. And then when we receive this support, this is where it looks like we will be. So stay authentic. That's the story.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I hope that answers your question. The next one I have here is, how do you show you have unique business when no business is ever truly the only one doing it?
Good. And I try to make this emphasis in the beginning that you don't need a unique business. It sounds very funny, but you don't need a unique business. You need a business that solves a problem. In fact, you guys can be 20,000 solving that problem. So long as there are people benefiting from you solving the problem, that's all that matters. It is this idea of trying to be unique that gets people to be inauthentic. You want to be so different that you now either get yourself into embellishing and sort of even, compromising your integrity. And I know what people mean when they say unique selling points. You need a unique selling point, but you don't need to be novel. You don't need to be the first person to do it in the world. You are not Isaac Newton. And you may never be an Isaac Newton. Now, in certain sectors and in certain industries, there will be a lot of innovation. And there's such a thing as additionality. So, for instance, don't come and approach an investor that you want to start selling bread. Selling, but except the uniqueness there in selling bread can be that you have found an app that makes it, or that you are creating an app that makes it easy for 10 million people to order bread instantly, and it gets to them faster than anybody can get it to them. That will be your unique selling point. But the same thing you are doing is that you are selling bread. It's still bread you're selling. So don't confuse that the idea that you need to have a unique selling point. Don't confuse it for that the idea has to be so unique that nobody has ever done it before. You will belong there. You are not Isaac Newton.
Thank you so much for that. I had my colleague here, who was talking about a particular brand of bread that she's always so proud of. I don't know if you know it, if you're familiar with Broche bread in Lagos. That bread is bread like no other. Okay, I go to the next question, which I think this is from a for-profit participant. It says, is it always necessary to reach profits within the period of projection, say 3 to 5, maybe if you're projected 3 to 5 years? Some growth plans and industries have large upfront costs and long payback periods, e.g. pharmaceuticals. So how do you deal with that? Is it always necessary that you reach the profit that you had projected for your organization, for your business?
That's a very good question. And your story would have already been proving it, right? So don't forget that you're trying to tell a story. You will encounter a problem if you have been telling them all along that this business is such a great business. It will, like once you touch it, $10 million will drop. Once you do, that's all you have been saying. Then we now get to numbers. All of a sudden, you're now showing me that you can only make profit in year 11. It doesn't match. It's not matching, right? So if the truth of the story is that the way this business works is that you incur capex and upfront costs that will be amortized over a given period, and in that period, the real thing the real advantage of the first 5 years is that you are acquiring customers, and that you will acquire nearly 1 million paying customers, or even not non-paying, but all of them are customers. And so the biggest benefit of this first 5 years is the 1 million customers you are acquiring, such that it is from year 6 that they will now start really paying, and the business will now start reaping the full benefits of paying customers. That would be an excellent story, and an investor will be able to see that in the first 5 years, it is CapEx we're investing, and what we're reaping is that customer acquisition. And then we know by what point we'll break even and start reaping profits. Again, storytelling. You would have your pitch would have shown it up to that point. Where investors have a problem is that you have made all this big noise about the business, but show numbers. You're not showing us that the numbers, So if it's consistent, a sound and savvy investor will know.
Awesome. Wise nuggets. All right, the next one is, it's rather difficult to project income for a non-profit, especially those that mostly depend on grants and donations. Now, how can this be presented in your pitch?
So the first thing is that what you have said is not true, right? You can project it, right? Which is actually where we're trying to get non-profits to build your capacity to run a viable enterprise. And you don't exist for profits, but your business model has to be viable. So what this exercise is actually forcing you to do is to think. So what will happen the day that you don't receive a grant? In fact, last year at my conference, and Osai was there, one investor was saying that they are tired of giving the same companies grants for 20 years. So at what point, the same NGOs grants for 20 years, at what point, right? And they call themselves a social enterprise. At what point do you develop sort of like the strength for viability? Now, there are people that your only job is to go to communities and dig boreholes, and you want to dig as many boreholes as possible. And then, I mean, you are not paid for it. The people are not buying the water. And so that's all that you really do. And because of that borehole, you're solving health problems, health outcomes, and things like that. Now, that's your business. Again, don't forget that when I talked about numbers, I said you've got to show viability, right? Now, for certain types of businesses where you are almost like you're a giving business, such that the viability really is in how scalable the solution you are providing is, not necessarily how much the people who benefit pay you, right? But you've got to continue to task yourself over time to be able to generate viability or instill viability in the business. And viability does not have to come from the people who benefit paying you for the service. It can be that you have developed scale so much that certain brands now want to associate with the work that you do. And those brands now cover your costs. That's viability. That's viability. It does not have to be that your projection means that from day one, or at any point that the beneficiaries of your work must pay you. No. It can be that you have done it so diligently, so efficiently, that and it can be as simple as that borehole water provision, that a brand actually now wants to associate with that your project because you've done it so excellently well, and they now start giving you funding for it. That's a type of viability. That's revenue, right? But I'm saying think through it. I can't answer for your specific enterprise or endeavor, but the principle is keep thinking through how can we continue to scale and make this business, if not completely self-sufficient, it can be partially self-sufficient.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. This person asked, how should nonprofits answer the how does it make money question, aside just mentioning grants, when they don't sell actual products or render services for income? I guess this person missed the part where you also ask, what value, do you bring? Perhaps you want to address that.
I mean, it's there. So as a non-profit, and I get the challenge. Look, and I think this is perhaps one of the strongest reasons ACT is doing this, just to continue to develop your capacity to answer this question. First of all, if I know what that your business is, that your endeavor is, I can show you. You'll be shocked. I can show you income streams down the line that you're not seeing by yourself, right? And sometimes the income streams don't generate income today, but they must be in your universe, right? So you can have about 15 things that can give revenue to this business at some point. Maybe 14 of them will be activated after 7 years. Maybe 6 of them will be activated after 5 years. But don't kid yourself that the only way, the absolute only way a business or a not-for-profit can be in business is that some grantor needs to give you grant, and that is absolutely the only way. The job of grants is to sort of catalyze you, give you a head start, support you for things that don't require immediate commercial viability, but it is your own job as the not-for-profit to begin, as you are receiving the grant, continue to invest, because one day that grant can stop. Continue to use the grant to invest in either things, product, or knowledge, or capacity to do things that will be self-sustaining in the long run. Yeah? And it doesn't have to happen today, but keep building that capacity today. So, and these are some of the things that grantors are now really, I give you an example. A very simple example. And this one is it's almost a do nothing strategy. So if you are a not-for-profit and you receive, and I'm being careful so I don't get into murky waters, but if say you receive 100 million naira and you are not going to spend 50 million at all until in January, you're not going to spend 50 million at all until July. Like the first 40 million-ish will be spent between January and June, and the next 55 million will be spent in July. What are you doing to ensure that that money delivers value? As I speak to you in Nigeria today, and I can do the quick math, that 55 million naira, at the very least, risk-free premium on that 55, and if you are not Nigerian, pardon our use of naira. We are not sorry really, but so 55 million naira at today's risk-free, today's rates would be maybe so that 55 million naira, instead of keep it and sit in your account and and say, you just have money, do you know that it can give you 850,000 naira every month in interest income? Interest income, and I'm not saying go and take risk with the donor's money. Now, obviously, respecting your donor agreement, if your donor contract does not allow you to do that, that's fine. But I'm saying risk-free, no, you are not. Do you know that 850,000 for some NGOs can actually pay the salaries of everybody in the enterprise? Or, or all the clerical people in the enterprise. So that's some type of viability on its own without even really thinking hard. So, and this is just the very basic place to start. I can layer it and layer it and layer it until you really get into, some other complex viability structures. But I'm saying don't just sit there and think that once grants does not come. I mean, as a country, our healthcare system is shaking because USAID has gotten a freeze. And the entire healthcare system of a continent, because a donor sneezed. So we need to get to that point where we keep investing in viability structures.
Thank you very much for that. All right, my next question, this person needs clarification. Will it be correct to say investments are designed for social enterprises and businesses, while grants is more suitable for nonprofits?
Can you take it again?
Okay. Will it be correct to say investments are designed for social enterprises and businesses, while grants is more suitable for nonprofits?
Okay, first of all, the perception of what a grant is has to change. A grant is an investment. It's an investment. You know, it's even the question almost sort of says, oh, an investment is more, we should treat an investment more carefully. But grant, you know, we can use grant. A grant is an investment, right? So, so if in the universe of investments, you have equity, you have debt, you have grants, you have a mix of all of them or a mix of some, but a grant is an investment. The fact you are not required to repay it does not, you are actually required to repay it in another way, which is that the person who invested that grant in you was hoping to see that you will achieve certain outcomes, even if the outcomes does not include or not include returning the money to them or to him. So you should ask yourself that, am I therefore on track to achieving the outcomes that made me seek the grants or made me receive the grants? And I can tell that, you know, some grants are just more personal capacity building things, you know, exposure. But when a grant has to do with like setting up an organization and targeting to achieve certain objectives, you should be asking you the grantor, you the grantee, should be asking yourself, have I met the conditions of the grant? Have I met the outcomes of the grant? Whether they are financial, and the person who gave you the grant knows that the reason it was designed to be a grant is so that you can build your capacity to be able to attract funding for the next person you will need to pay. So ask yourself, am I becoming that business that can now attract that thing you are calling investment, which will be either loan or equity? Am I using the grant to become the person who is now stable and viable enough to be able to attract the kind of funding I can repay?
Thank you. I cannot agree with you more on that. That is so correct. It is so apt because really grants for grantors, they expect social returns on their investments. So grants are totally investment. I totally agree with you on that. Thank you so much, Tochukwu. I have a few more questions to go and then we will close. Given challenges of doing business in Africa, someone is asking, would you suggest more innovative businesses and social enterprises avoid debt funding at the start?
No, this is a good question. And the answer is yes and no. Because I think the reason you are asking this question, so let me answer it this way. The way to answer this question is that you should avoid anything that does not help you. And the way to know whether something helps you or not is to ask the right question, like I started with. So in many cases, avoiding debt as a startup business, as you're just starting some SME business, in many cases, avoiding debt helps you. But in many cases, it doesn't help you. For instance, I can tell you that, you know, all of these market women that Lapo and all of these types of businesses give daily loans to and recover. Do you know that traditional banks used to avoid giving them money because they said they were not structured? But you know, when Lapo Microfinance and all of the other types of microfinance now got in there, they broke it down in a way that was useful to the market women. They'll give a market woman 200,000, and instead of like a bank ask her for her mother's head and all sorts of funny things, they will go there every day and recover the loan at 500 naira a day. And that way, the woman is fine. The woman has used 200,000 to go and buy onions from the north, and she's repaying a bank 1,000 naira every day. It's helping her. Meanwhile, that same woman will knock on the door of a commercial bank for 2 years and will not get 100,000 naira loan. So there are times when a loan, depending on the source, actually helps you. In fact, there are times when that is actually what you need now. But the general template of your answer, which I think is where you're asking, is this tendency to just want to start and go and collect one 4 million naira loan or 10 million naira loan and go and you can be paying off loan for 5 years while your mates are doing bigger things with their life. So that type of loan, avoid it. But the idea of credit is what I want to say, that there's a cultural disposition to credit that may not be healthy for businesses. They say, don't borrow, I'm a lender to nations, I'm not a borrower. There are types of credits that actually do support your business. You should be asking yourself, is it the right type for me? But I hear you. Look, and the reason you shouldn't do that is that businesses have risks. All of that, your excitement that you will rule the world with this business. You may not rule the world though, and you have taken 20 million naira. You will pay back, right? So don't go and take a loan that does not match your business. And guess what? I can do this for in cash flow analysis or in business finance courses. I can teach this separately, but risks are real. People have gotten their hands burnt. And guess what? We teach this in credit analysis all the time, that sometimes you were doing well until you took a credit, until you took a loan. It's the loan that now killed you. The loan, it's the credit you thought you were looking for. Even investments, it's not just loans. Sometimes the investment you thought you needed will now sort of kill the business and kill even your own ambition. And I can give you many examples for equity where owners of business have lost their businesses to equity sharks, and they could do nothing about it. Anyway, long story, that's a separate symposium discussion, but I think you get the gist.
Yes, we do. Okay, now we have a couple of questions in our Q&A box. This person would like to know if there are platforms either in Nigeria or other African countries where nonprofits and social enterprises can give a try to their ideas that can eventually lead to possible grants or equity. If you know of any platform that you can share with us.
I think ACT is a first ground to explore. But communities exist. So it depends on what your business is. So the first thing I'll ask you, that's your business. What is it, for instance? If you know what it is, if it's a thematic thing, let's say, for instance, it's a climate thing. So you need to go and look for climate-related communities, like incubators, like, networks, just climate-related, so that you will see ideas, for instance, like, you'll be shocked that there are 10,000 of the same idea you are trying to do. You'll be shocked that what you are trying to do can be a part of what another person is doing, so that you don't need a funder. You just need to plug into what somebody is already doing in that climate, such that you become their raw material and they produce, things like that. So the short answer is that the answer is yes, but you have to stay thematic. There's no one broad place. What is your business? Is it climate? We can direct you to climate communities, or you get on LinkedIn and begin to find people in your world. If it's healthcare, there will be people in healthcare. Start talking to people around healthcare, attending healthcare specific events. So the answer to your question is yes, but make it thematic. Find people around your own sector, and that will make it easier.
Right. Thank you very much. This person wants to know, what is your top tip for a 1-minute elevator pitch, whether a business or a not-for-profit? What should be the thing that you probably met Dangote and he's going to give you some money, and then you have 1 minute to make your pitch to him? What should be the top thing you talk about?
First of all, I promise you are not going to meet Dangote in the lift. But if you do, if you do meet him, if you do meet Dangote in the lift, and secondly, if you even meet Dangote in the lift, he's probably going to be on a phone call. But I get the question. So my answer to that question would be that you should master the art of explaining your business model. That slide on business model that I explained in the simplest possible term. And I promise you, 1 minute will not be enough. So don't let people deceive you about this elevator pitch thing. In fact, I would say that you should take two things. Go to my slide on impression and absorb that slide on impression so well that by impression, you can get a second appointment. Your goal is to get a second appointment. Sometimes your need to want to quickly do that excellent pitch will even make you make the wrong impression, right? Or sound desperate. So I would actually really favor you focusing on making the right impression in that 1 minute so that you can get a second invitation, right? Because it's not really what you say. It's really what you embody. So what I will do, and what I will do will differ from what you will do. What I will do if I was in that setting, if I was in an elevator, I will focus on making the right impression because 1 minute will not be enough. But if you indeed have 1 minute to speak, be able to speak on your business model in the shortest possible way. How does your business make money? Who does it address? And what is the solution?
Thank you so much for that. Okay, now someone wants to know, and I suppose this question would also help other people. It says, how does this whole process apply to nonprofits?
It does apply to you if you
Totally
follow
agree.
the thinking. If you follow the thinking and the principle. And I think part of the biggest blessing here is if we really get you, these nonprofits, to really keep thinking viability, because many people just sentence themselves to, it almost feels like you have sentenced yourself to this life of dependency because you are a not for profit. That you are not, look, some of the most prosperous organizations on the planet are not for profits. Yeah, not for profits. So it's that mindset we need to shift. We need to shift that mindset from, and don't get me wrong, you can be a not-for-profit and not actually make profit. You can be a not-for-profit and not make profit in your first 5 years or ever. You can be a non-profit and the times when you become self-sufficient will be in 10 years' time. But don't be the not-for-profit that thinks that you are condemned and sentenced to just a life of receiving and receiving and receiving, and never ever building capacity for staying self-sufficient or for staying and self-sufficiency can be, and I teach this in another class. Self-sufficient can be in degrees. You can be 30% self-sufficient. You can be 50% self-sufficient, such that if you cut off your funding, what will happen is that you have lost 50% of sufficiency. But I'm saying wherever you are and however long it takes you to get there, plan for it. You can be 10% self-sufficient today. Plan that by the next 3 years, you'll be 30%. Plan that by the year 7, you are maybe 60% self-sufficient. But there's got to be a plan, and it is achievable. People have achieved it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, I wonder if, but I'll ask anyway. This person is asking, what is the best approach to reach investors? Is it via email, phone call, or on the website, or on recommendation?
Best source to reach investors. I would say you should try everything and stick to what works. But the more practical or practicable way is to join communities and stay visible, right? It is that visibility that gives you that referral we are talking about, right? You attend one event and you exchange cards with some person who's an investor or who is one step away from an investor. And that person, in the next 2 weeks, is supposed to organize a deal room and you potentially qualify. Then you are invited into that deal room. But you see, you didn't meet the investor directly. You stood up from your house, or you were attentive enough to see the event, attended the event. Then at the event, you were bold enough to introduce yourself, and you introduced yourself and got a card. And then the card is even not the card of the investor, it's somebody who's working around the investor, but just knows that you qualify for something. That's how it works. The way it works is to put yourself out there. Because even if you go to the website of an investor and say info at something, something, or you even see the email address of somebody, your email may not be responded to. It may go into spam box. You may not qualify and all of those things. So the best way to reach investors is to not try to reach them directly, is to put yourself out there. Attend all the events, go for put yourself in communities. As those conversations happen, one person will tell one person, who will tell one person, who will tell one person. Before you know it, you're finding yourself in rooms where investors are, and they're going to be taking interest in you. But it's more effective that way than, oh, there's one investor, let me go to their website and check. Except they make a call. They make a call, apply. Applying will also be part of you putting yourself out there, but the effective counsel is put yourself out there.
Thank you so much. I think we have 2 more questions to go. This person wants to know, should you show your pricing and how you buy to make your profits? E.g., you buy from farmers at so amount, or you process in factory at so amount, and then you sell to shops at so amount.
I don't think that you are required to do that. I don't think so. There's such a thing as, trade secrets. I don't think so. I don't think you are required to be that explicit. Except maybe in some cases, there's some not-for-profits that your donors require you to do traceability disclosures around where you are sourcing your raw materials and the livelihood of your suppliers, things like that. But if not, I don't think so. You do not owe anybody that information, really.
Great. Okay. I'm hoping this is the last. I can't see any more questions. This person is curious, with the numerous pitches you've received or come across, can you share details of the most compelling pitch you have ever encountered?
The most compelling pitch I've ever encountered are the ones that did exactly what I shared today, right? I've seen so many, I will lose count, but I think most of it is already in what I have shared with you today. The pitches that get to me are the pitches that, as I'm reading it, I'm smiling because it's answering the next question I want to ask. As I'm reading this thing, the first paragraph also, and in my mind, I'm thinking, but what if? And the next paragraph I read answers that my what if. Say, oh, great, okay, cool. And then as I'm reading that next paragraph again, I'm thinking, okay, but what if? And then the next one or slide I read is answering. So the most compelling pitches are the pitches that answer the question of the investor as they arise in his mind.
Right, thank you. And again, okay, this person asks, how can you help NGOs to raise funds for their work, as you mostly allude to entrepreneurship?
I hear you. And I'll keep answering the same way. The first, so, and this one is slightly different from what has been asked before. NGOs, again, I would say join ecosystems, right? Join ecosystems. Some of them can even be paid. Maybe there's some small subscription that you're required to, but to join ecosystems, don't do it alone. It is the same principle as I've asked entrepreneurs to put themselves out there. I'm asking you NGOs to put yourself out there. Don't be stuck. And guess what? Sometimes the investment you are looking for, you want to go and collect the money from Bill and Melinda Gates. But in some cases, Bill and Melinda Gates has already funded another another NGO that if you do well to associate with, you will get part of that funding for your own work, which is smaller. So it's the same principle. Put yourself out there. If you are a small NGO doing some sort of work, you need maybe $50,000 to be sufficient this year. That donor that you are hoping that one day you will see has already given another NGO $1 million. And I know that there are problems within this space. I'm not here to teach the issues in NGO space. But that donor you are hoping that you should meet tomorrow afternoon has already funded somebody who can fund you. And the only way you will know is to just put yourself out there, attend events, join ecosystems, get on LinkedIn and see some of these communities. And I'm not saying it is easy, but I'm saying do it, right? What does not work is you just hoping or sitting down there and say, Bill and Melinda Gates or Grand Challenges Canada, I hope they give me $100,000. You'll be shocked that there's another NGO that has already received $500,000 that your own $50,000 can just support. And then you would have received your funding easy, right? So it's an ecosystem. It's a funding ecosystem. Join the larger ecosystem, attend a lot of events, and from those events, you meet new people, you hear new things, and the quality of your network grows. Don't forget, all the things you need, whether it's money or any other type of help, is always around you. The difference is, are you in that place? Are you in the environment, right? Or do people see you as credible? Sometimes the way to be seen as credible is to associate with people who are already seen as credible. And that way, you will then have a higher chance of attracting that support that you're looking for, whether it's funding, referral, partnership, whatever.
Yeah, thank you so much. So beyond funding, you may just need partnership, you may need referrals and other things. I want to say a very big thank you to you once again for taking out time to be here. It's 1:15 already, and we would like to shut down in a bit. But just before I hand over to our HR manager, Afe Buoro, to close us out, I would like to enjoin us to please stay in touch with Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation via our emails, our social media handles, because we have a couple more trainings in the course of the year. And now, to close us out and formally say thank you to our speaker, I have here with me Afe Buoro, who is our Human Resource Manager. Over to you, Afe.
Thank you, Bibi. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of ACT Foundation, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Tochukwu for sharing his expertise and insights on how to craft an irresistible pitch. Thank you for reminding us to have a winning mindset. I think that stood out for me. I want to thank the 80% of the new attendees as well for joining us, and also the old 20%. Let's all remember to research, organize, and rehearse before pitching our next ideas. Let's take whatever we've learned so far and put it into use, whether in a profit or non-profit space. We look forward to seeing you at the next event, as this will go on subsequently. This is just the first one for this year. For more updates on our training, visit our website. Thank you again, Tochukwu, for this. It was really, really amazing. I learned a lot personally. Thank you. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, bye everyone. Sorry about that. Okay, so as you exit, you'll see that we have a survey for you. Please, we need your feedback to help us get better and better at what we do. Thanks once again. Bye, everyone.